Hello, 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 everybody. I am Catherine. I am the podcast host of Chakras and Cuss Words. I am excited to be here. This has been like a very fun chakra series. I am doing a deep dive into the Solar Plexus chakra. So, for those who have been in the chakra series before, who have been in my rooms before, please, oh geez, I'm like stuck in the back channel. Please listen to the first couple of episodes of what is a chakra, and also the root chakra and the sacral chakra, because we are now on the third chakra, which is the solar plex chakra. So for those who just kind of want a little bit of background, the chakras, there are 7 main chakras. They are energy within us. They are really that area that creates this abundance and creates this area of energy sources. Many of us have chakras that are either blocked, depleted, or excessive. So that's something that you kind of need to understand when you are working with the chakra system, that we have to treat everything as energy and see everything as energy, and where we place our energy and where we put our energy is really going to make a difference when we are balancing and working with our chakra system. I put up my link right there for those who are interested. You can tap on that link and tap the podcast and listen to the whole first introduction of the chakra series. And then you can also go back and listen to the in-depth area of the chakra system as well. And I believe the in-depth areas of the chakra system, the first 2 are on Clubhouse: the introduction of what is a chakra, the root chakra, and the sacral chakra. And then this is the solar plex. So let's talk about the solar plex, okay? So the solar plex chakra is one of the most complex chakras. And I'm going to say that because this is where a lot of people will have areas that they kind of really see it. Definitely with energy, you really see the solar plex energy a lot. So the solar plex is the third chakra. It is in the area of the abdomen, of the stomach area. A lot of people, sometimes if they have indigestion, or if they have areas with a sluggish gut, or areas that are kind of holding them back, or anxiety through the gut, that could be something that has to do with the solar plex chakra as well. The solar plex chakra's main source, its main central source, is power and will. And that structure of power and willpower and creating and becoming one with and seeing expansion really taking place. And while each chakra has its own element, the solar plex is the one that really gets it going, really like starts it. The solar plexus area is centered off of fire. Its element is fire. So when you think about it as its natural state of fire, fire creates so much, right? It creates heat, it creates warmth, it creates food, it creates substance. It literally can create so much. What happens when that fire is at different energy sources? That fire can be out completely, where you can't have any fire. You can't get warm. You can't cook a food. You can't light a candle. You have no ignition, right? You have no energy in that source. You can also look at the fire and see that the fire is barely hanging on. There's just a little bit of flame in there, right? It's just a little lit. It's not fully lit. It's not at a good flow. It's just barely hanging on. You look at the candle and you can kind of tell when that candle's about to have its last moment, right? It's going to light its last room. You kind of look at that candle and like, man, that candle is getting down to the wick. It's about to go out. That candle's barely holding on. That flame is barely lit. Then you look at some fire that's excessive. It's too excessive. It's too hot. The flames are almost dangerous, right? You see a big like bonfire and they accidentally maybe pour some gasoline on it or something happens. Those flames are going to be so intense that they can't even put it out, right? So the element of the solar plex, of the fire energy, is complex because you have to find a flow that is safe, a flow that keeps the warmth in, keeps the energy in, but doesn't get too excessive, doesn't get dangerous, doesn't get reckless. It doesn't get off balance. It stays at a nice flow. For the solar plex, it's really that area of life, that area of vitality. And one of the main elements of the solar plex too, not only fire, but sun, right? You can have only certain plants without sun, without that warmth, without that growth. If you don't have any energy, because remember, everything's energy, if you don't have any energy to those plants, they will die. So we have to think of it as that area. This element of the solar plex is fire. It is that warmth. It is that area of life. And it comes with something that is known as strengthening it, creating a flow where the solar plex is strong, but it's not overly strong. It's not overly warm. It's not hot. Because when we do that, we step into our areas of ego. So the solar plex walks a very thin line, right? The solar plex is that energy that is about the ego, the higher self, and having that trait where it's at a nice consistency. You have enough ego, you have enough confidence, you have enough power to create, to get on stage, to start a business, to talk to that person you like, to create relationships. You have enough power to start something, but it's not overly excessive where it's turning into an area where you're no longer taking over the relationship. You're not taking over the business. You're not taking over the stage where you don't listen to other people's opinions. The solar plex also has a couple elements that people automatically feel the need. They feel a need of want. And when we're thinking about the chakra system and the energy system, it's a balance of want versus need versus becoming, right? We can want everything. At the time, we feel like we might need everything, but we have to balance it at a certain structure where it's not becoming overly imbalanced. The solar plex chakra's traits are really established at a very young age. The first three chakras, which are your root, your sacral, and your solar plex, most of your characteristics come from early childhood with the solar plex. We are talking 18 months to 3 years old. That lets me know right there that a lot of these traits have to do with what has been inherited through generations, what has been delivered through generations, what has been seen through generations. It's the area of confidence with identity. It's the area of confidence of self and the definition of self and who are you? Where'd you come from? What'd your parents do? Where'd you live? What school did you go to? Were you destined to be a millionaire? Were you destined to be a wife? Were you destined to be a traveler? Were you destined to be a philosopher? What areas of element, of traits fed your solar plex? The solar plex chakra also has a lot to do with shame. That is the area of guilt that we hold on to when we don't do something, when we feel that we are not living in our solar plex state, when we feel that we aren't living in our divine energy state, we become shameful. Many of us, we start to compare ourselves, look at others. How come their course sold out? How come her podcast hit number 1? How come that girl I went to school with ended up marrying a billionaire? How come I didn't? We put our area of shame because we aren't living and we aren't connected with our solar plex. And that's what we tend to do when we feel deficient in our solar plex energy. And we start to compare ourselves to others. And then we put the shame behind it. How come they don't like me? How come she didn't invite me to her house? She invited everybody else from work. How come she didn't invite me? That's our solar plex. That's that area in your gut speaking to you, telling you. This is where we need to find that identity, that self energy, that shame shouldn't live there. That shame doesn't belong there. We can only be who we are. We can only be our own self and create our own power and create our own strength and create our own flame. But when we continue to compare ourselves to others, that lets our solar plex dwindle lower, our flame get lower, our warmth get lower. Also, when it comes to the solar plex, there is excessive and deficient traits, like I said. How do you know your solar plex is excessive? How do you see somebody with a solar plex that's excessive? Having excessive solar plex sometimes isn't necessarily a horrible thing. It might be an actual great thing. You might be a CEO of a company. You might be very dominant, very assertive. When it starts to affect your relationships with self and your relationships with others is when it becomes a problem, is when we need to calm that excessiveness down. When the solar plex is taking up so much energy, so much fire, and it's just sizzling where the root chakra, the sacral chakra, the heart chakra, the throat chakra, the third eye chakra, and the crown chakra aren't receiving any energy because the solar plex is just taking it all, just letting it flame out in that one area. We will see complications with self, with reflection of self, with relationships, and it will feel very, very abrupt. Somebody who has an excessive solar plex chakra will often seem chaotic. They might be living in an area of chaos, of dominance. There might be that person that you thought had amazing leadership skills, and then you realized that person's a freaking asshole. That person does not care what anybody else has to say. That person does not care what anybody else has to think. That person is just living within one area, the ego. That is an excessive trait of the solar plex. They are aggressive. They are usually constantly active. They have so much power. They have so much area of willpower that they're out. Sometimes you see it with athletes, a very excessive solar plex chakra. They're always kind of like in this fire element. What we also look for at a deficient solar plex would be where the confidence is a little harder to obtain. You don't necessarily have the confidence to start your business. You don't have the confidence to start a conversation. You don't have the confidence to post maybe even a selfie with your family or a family photo. You're just living in this area of shame. And you're really living in this area of weak identity, weak self. You don't feel appreciated. You don't feel heard. You don't think people like you. You almost feel sluggish. You feel like you just can't really get out there. You can't put yourself out there. Because if you put yourself out there, somebody's going to judge you. They're not going to like you. So you automatically go into this shame area. It's a balance. We all have moments when our solar plex is excessive and our solar plex is deficient. I say the solar plex chakra is the most complex chakra because it is one of the hardest chakras to balance. And a lot of people have to really discover boundaries and really acknowledge if they are living in the people-pleasing aspect to balance the solar plex. Are they living in a self of identity? Are they able to identify with self in the solar plex? Do they feel confident? Do they feel secure? And if most of those are no, 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 it's also steaming down from the root chakra as well, is probably blocked, where they have to create mechanisms of safety and mechanisms of having safe boundaries and feeling secure in self and identity and really establishing the first three chakras. A lot of people will get stuck on the solar plex. That's when that really takes a lot of work. The solar plex chakra also, it holds the power of growth in so many aspects. It lets you share your thoughts, your stories, your experiences, and it lets you understand yourself and also the self of others. It's one of those chakras that you are going to have to devote time to. You're going to have to establish if it is sluggish and does have a block, areas that will make you feel more confident, feel more secure, feel more safe with living in self, with living in your identity self. It is really that area that a lot of people, when you think of confidence and self-esteem, they think some people have it and some people don't. And that's not necessarily true. Some people had to really work to get themselves at an area where it made them feel safe. It made them feel secure. The solar plex also is something that takes a lot of practice of letting go of the shame, of letting go, of letting the ego take this place more than the higher self. When we have a strong will where we just want to succeed and succeed and succeed, and we don't care who we hurt on the way, that is an excessive solar plex. So it takes a lot of reflection, a lot of area with reflection where a lot of times you are looking at what you learned as a child. And it is some child healing wounds, but it's also an area of where you may have been told that you are special. And we're all special. You're just not more special than everybody else. So if you had a parent who was excessively feeding your solar plex, that's something you have to realize. That's something that you have to acknowledge, because it's going to create that ego where the ego is living more than the higher self. So you have to acknowledge that. You have to open your eyes and look at the other person's story. You have to acknowledge the other person's emotions. And you have to really take time to work on it. And with the solar plex, there are foods you can eat. Of course, if you are having an excessive solar plex chakra, you shouldn't be eating tons of lemons. Because most of the time when we eat towards our chakras, we eat in the area and the color of the chakra. And these are healthy foods. So we would be eating like bananas, yellow squash, making plates that resembled if we were depleted or if we were excessive. If we are depleted, then we would be using lemon. We would be using more of that fire element. It is also a good chakra to use yoga stances with. A lot of people use yoga and also gut health with the solar plex as well, and creating natural habits. Also, if you are centered around opening that area of the solar plex back up, you're going to want to do mirror magic, affirmations, confidence affirmations. Really speak to yourself how you would want to speak to others, how you would want others to speak to you. Be consistent. Be consistent in your practices. You're also going to want to do a lot of breathing techniques. You want to inhale and exhale, especially in the standing position with your arms elevated, to receive the energy and release the energy all the way from the gut out. It is also the time that you will be doing areas where you're feeling, especially if it is a sluggish solar plex, where you are charging yourself up, where you're giving yourself that time to have that battery getting recharged, right? You give yourself that time for that battery to get healed and get recharged and live into the state of where it can Feel the accomplishments that you've created before. Feel the achievements that you've created before and acknowledge that you can create again. Acknowledge you can use that willpower again and get centered in that space. You're also going to want to look at the gut health again with the solar plex chakra, because a lot of times if you are holding on to a lot of constriction, you're probably constipated. You're probably in that area of sluggish gut. You're in that area of where you aren't able to release your energy, where you aren't able to release the toxins. And you don't want to be in an excessive area of the solar plex either when it's related to gut health, because you will also see where it's the opposite, where it's consistently having diarrhea and possible anxiety, living in this chaotic energy of too much of the fire element, of too much of the area where you are really not able to move, you're not able to produce because it's almost too much. You just have too much on your plate. You keep filling your plate with more. You keep just overwhelming yourself. With the solar plex in relationships, you tend to see that one partner is extremely aggressive and dominant, and it's creating a misalignment with the relationship because one of the partners feels that the dominance and the excessiveness is too much. It's almost too fiery, right? You get two people with an excessive solar plex chakra. That relationship can get very toxic very quick. You get one person who has an extremely excessive solar plex chakra and one person who has a deficient solar plex chakra. That relationship can get very toxic very quick. And when that happens, in all honesty, the best thing to do is to take a break from each other and really get into counseling. Especially if it's getting to a place where it's too aggressive. Most people who have a solar plex excessive chakra, if you were to tell them, they would tell you you are crazy and weak. And it's almost like a very narcissistic trait. If you were to see somebody with an extreme excessive ego and solar plex, they would almost feel very narcissistic. Ways that you can overcome your willpower if you feel that it is sluggish and your solar plex is blocked or depleted. One of the things to do is to create a list. And it almost feels so, like a list, like a honey to-do list for self. But create a list where it speaks to you, where it doesn't feel like you have to do it. Because most of the time when somebody creates a list, right, because with the solar plex being deficient, we see a lot of procrastination. And we want it to get back into that power state where it's something where you have the confidence, where you want to do it, not because you have to do it. So if that means something as simple as laundry, something that you keep putting back, like I'm just going to keep putting this back, I'm just going to keep putting this back, I'm just going to keep putting this back. Do it in a way where you could create a list: laundry with music, laundry with my favorite podcast, Chakras and Cuss Words, laundry with being on the phone with my best friend, laundry with something you enjoy. For instance, If you are feeling that your solar plex is deficient and excessive, okay, so for instance, if you have a deficient solar plex chakra, take time to put energy to meeting somebody new. And it doesn't have to be a relationship. Everybody thinks, oh my goodness, it must be a relationship that she's talking about. No, this could be a neighbor. This could be a friendship. This could be going to a local business and saying hi to the business owner and asking them some questions. This is really just putting the power in having that area of structure and confidence and center where you're able to strike up a conversation, where you can say good morning to maybe somebody standing in line at Starbucks. And if the solar plex is excessive, where the ego is becoming too much, take time to listen to somebody else. Listen to somebody else's concerns. Listen to somebody else's situations. Listen to what it feels like to be in their shoes. Listen to their story and reflect on it. Reflect, how would you feel if that was you? How would you feel if you were in that space? Take time to settle down if your solar plex is excessive. Really take that time to settle down. You don't need to create everything. You don't need to complete everything. You have to let go of some of that ego, especially if it is affecting your relationships. Also, make a list of things for a sluggish solar plex, a blocked solar plex, that you think would make you feel better about self, about identity, about how you felt about self. Would it be maybe meditating in the morning? Could it be spending time with friends more? Talking on the phone more? Reading a new book? Creating more recipes that are related to the solar plex? Healthy yellow foods, natural yellow foods? Take that time. People who really traditionally have an excessive solar plex usually need counseling, usually need some sort of getting back into a space where they aren't so aggressive, they aren't so dominant. And usually that's coming from a mechanism where they've been either hurt or their ego has just been engaged with at such a high form where they've been constantly just recognized for everything that it's almost turned into an area where it's excessive. So they need to find areas where they become more empathetic with others. And let's see what else about the solar plex that really, the element is fire. So that is one of the things that really I want you guys to understand, that with the fire element, it needs to be a consistent flow. It controls the power source. Also, it is known as the digestive fire. So if it is excessive, you will feel it in the gut. If it is depleted, you will feel it in the gut as well. And a lot of it has to do with strengthening healthy boundaries and also assertiveness, where you aren't aggressive, where you aren't like overly aggressive. And you want to increase that area over time. And like I have told many of my listeners of my podcast, many of the people I work with, that this is a lifestyle change. Your chakras aren't aligned all the time. They aren't perfect all the time. They aren't engaged fully all the time. It is a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle that you do daily practices to enhance the chakra energy, to level the chakra energy, to balance it. It really is an area where you are proactive in living in your personal power, living in your personal center of your divine state, how you want to be feeling in this world, how you want to feel in this world. I don't want to feel shame. I know many of you don't want to feel shame. And letting go of those areas of guilt, those areas of where we feel unaligned, right? We want to feel aligned as we live in this path. We want to feel aligned as we work with our energy, because we are energy and everything about us is energy. The energy we receive from others, the energy that we receive from the universe, the energy that feeds us courage and independence and passion is the same energy that we release. So keep that in mind. When you are trying to balance your solar plex and you're still kind of learning, there will be times, especially if you are somebody who had maybe excessive solar plex, and now you're trying to be more empathetic, but it's just not coming natural, right? You might come off a little passive aggressive, right? You're like, oh, okay, if I just don't say anything, they won't know that I really want to be all fiery, right? They really won't know that I really want to be aggressive. I just go, Just remember to try to create a center of peace where you can listen to others' messages, even though you don't necessarily agree with them or you don't necessarily hold it to a space that works for you, but to at least listen. But protect your space, protect your energy. And that's something that I tell everybody, regardless if your chakra is depleted or excessive. You have to protect your energy, because if you have an excessive solar plex chakra and you aren't protecting your energy, others' energy might rile you up, right? It might create that fire to get that strong wind where next thing you know, you are just starting some forest fires everywhere. You're just starting that heat everywhere. So it's really about protecting your energy and knowing your limits and knowing where it's time for you to walk away or it's time for you to take some breaths, because we can only control our reaction. And sometimes it's hard to do that, right? Sometimes we want to be fiery and we want to, spit some fire out at people and say, you know what? But we're trying to clear our space. We're trying to clear our soul, because that doesn't serve our soul purpose. That doesn't serve our karmic energy. That keeps our solar plex excessive. So we have to keep it at a neutral space, at a fiery space where the fire is lit and warm, but it's not excessive. So just remember to always protect your energy, always protect your space. Don't make other people's reactions or actions create you to be powerless in your solar plex. Because your solar plex is your power. Your solar plex is your strength. So don't let others create that powerlessness, that illusion that you can't control your reactions, right? You can't control it. There's a lot of fear that comes with the solar plex. And I want to talk about that because a lot of us won't start something, or we live in this area of deficient or depleted fire or depleted willpower because we have the fear that if we do it, it might not work, right? The fire might not stay. We have this fear that the energy will run out. We have this fear that it won't work and we'll fail. I'm going to tell you guys, failure happens. It's a part of life. But we can't let these failures have us live in fear. We can't have these failures hinder us to the point of we don't ever light that candle again. We don't ever light that solar plex again. I failed out of the first nursing school I got into. I failed out. I got a D. They said, don't bring your ass back. I failed. First nursing school I went to, failed. I chose another nursing school, went back, became a nurse 2 years later. So don't let these failures leave us energy depleted. Don't let these failures leave us powerless. Don't let these failures block your solar plex. We have to take them as lessons. Also, the sound of the solar plex is the Ram. So if you do mantras and you are trying to balance the solar plex and definitely get in that area of meditation, I do recommend doing some breath work with your arms up high to get that gut flowing, to get that gut aligned, because you really want to feel the air come through the stomach up and out to the universe. You really want to take that energy into the stomach, into the solar plex as well. So put your arms up, really get that in, and then release and do a rum, and you will feel it in the solar plex. You will feel that. And what other thing that I think is very important? Another way that you can find out if you are excessive with the solar plex is if you have problems with authority, with leaders, with structure where people might criticize you, right? People might, tell you, hey, get off your cell phone while you're at work, or hey, and of course, everybody has different ways of approaching. Some people don't approach it completely right. Some people don't approach it, in a way that doesn't feel so threatening. So, but if you are always feeling that when they tell you something that it's automatically turning into this where you just blow it away, you don't listen to their side, automatically just blow it out. They don't know what they're talking about. I hate that boss. Ugh. Most likely it's an excessive solar plex. Also, if you have outburst, that is an excessive solar plex. If you are constantly feeling irritable at others for their opinions, thoughts, protect your space, but you might want to settle that solar plex. And if you are feeling the need where it's just like you are suffering from a lot of heartburn and ulcers and digestive problems, diarrhea, indigestion, really look at the solar plex, look at healthy, natural foods that will feed the solar plex. Try to refrain from foods that are very hard on the gut, which would be like red meats. If you can, try to eat as light as possible so you kind of calm that energy down. Also, if you are feeling very deficient in the solar plex, you might feel very powerless, very low self-esteem, and procrastination is your best friend. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I procrastinate all the time, right? Lack of stamina. You're always drinking coffee. You might have a deficient solar plex. So there are some exercises that you can do. Communication is one of the best. How you communicate with others, how others communicate with you, even though it's hard sometimes if you're always feeling that somebody's very dominant. Protect your space, like I said before. If the relationship is manipulative, definitely just don't engage in conversations. One of the hardest people to deal with is somebody with an extremely excessive solar plex. But also offer time for meditation, time for breath work, time to allow you to sit in your emotions. And it's okay to say, I don't understand why this person is such a bitch, or I don't understand why, I feel ashamed about this, or I don't understand. Allow yourself to sit in your emotions, allow yourself to feel that grief, allow yourself to feel that anger. Just do it in a way where you're able to release it and not hold it in. Sometimes you just need to vent, right? Like venting is the best, especially if you just have to vent. Twisting of the abdomen is actually a good way to increase the energy source to the solar plex. So you could do some twisting yoga exercises. You can also do some twisting of the energy if it is sluggish. If it is excessive, you want to do more of like an upward stretch, not necessarily a reclining, twisting stretch. But for the homework assignment, for those who do my homework assignments, definitely find yoga poses that initiate the solar plex. I'm not a huge yogi. I don't know a lot of the names, but there are ones that you can do, like the downward dog, where you open up that area of the abdomen, open up at that area. Also, what I want you to look at is, what was your structure with the parental unit? And I always talk about the parental unit, usually for the first 3 of the solar plex, and even a little bit of the 4th. The first 3 chakras, a lot of generational traits in there, a lot of generational curses, a lot of generational habits, a lot of parental habits are established during that time. But I want you to look at the parental unit and how were their solar plex? How did you see it? When mom got mad, did she get like extremely mad? Did she get a crazy mad? Was she throwing stuff? Was her fire element everywhere? Or did she just close out? Did she stop talking? Also look at, how did they talk to you on your accomplishments? Did they acknowledge them? Did they not acknowledge them? Did they praise you for your achievements? Was there a balance where you understood discipline? where you understood, I can't eat all the cookies. I'm going to get a stomach ache. I'm going to get in trouble. Or did you get to eat all the cookies? Did you get to draw on the walls? Did you get to do everything you wanted? Was your willpower always initiated? And parental styles are different for many people, but a lot of the times with the first three, a lot of the traits we learn comes from the parental units, comes from the family, comes from the home, the confidence. Did people tell you you couldn't do certain things? Was there self-esteem building in the house? Was everything being criticized in the house? Were you teased for weight, appearance, identity, self? Look at those areas. Look at those areas and see how you felt at the time. Did you feel confident? Did, they really build up your self-esteem? Did you know that, yes, if I went to the talent show today, girl, I was going to perform and I might even win? Or did they say, don't go to the talent show? Nobody wants to hear you. No. I mean, in all honesty, a lot of this stuff, even though it seems so minute as adults now, affects our energy sources now as adults. So look at that. And I just want to thank everybody who popped in this room. The solar plex chakra, like I said, is one of the most complex chakras. Just the other day, was like, whoo, honey, my solar plex, I was like, whoo, let me calm down. Let me take a breather. I had to do a lot of reflection because I will be honest, the solar plex is never perfect. There's moments where it's sluggish. There's moments where it is high. And yesterday I was living in one of those moments where the ego took over and I just needed to calm my butt down, right? And I recognized that, at the time it didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like I could, but after today doing releasing and energy work and clearing and breathing, I realized, girl, you were off. Your solar plex was, no. It was excessive. And it needs to be out of balance. It needs to be out of warmth alignment where it feeds into the other chakras. So I want to thank you guys for coming in. Thank you so much. I do offer chakra coaching. I'm starting my first ebook. If you are interested in pre-ordering, it is a book that is focused on the chakra system, the 7 chakras, and it's focused on the area of building your business. While I do personal coaching, I also do a lot with business clients as well, usually people who are centered in starting their business and starting their brand, treating the business as an energy source as it is, just like the human body. So you can message me pre-order and I will put your name down and get your information for the book. It's hopefully to be out by September. Part of me wants to release it on October 31st just to have it tied into Halloween because I love everything Halloween. But then a part of me is like, oh, girl, that's too much. I don't know. All right. Thank you guys for listening and have an amazing day. Bye.